The 3D space in After Effects is amazing. This section is just a simple introduction on how to use the 3D space mainly for text and shape layers. Just to let you know, in the next two sections, you will learn more on how to use the camera and the orbit null and lots of motion graphics. You will start by learning how to animate the layers transform properties in the 3D space. To make it interesting and useful, first I will show you how it all works. And then you will have 4 animations to create, so you can train on using the 3D properties, the motion path in 3D, and the null object. By the end of this section, I believe you will have a good grasp on how to work in 3D space and how to create some awesome animations. Welcome guys to 3D in After Effects. In fact, welcome to 3D space in After Effects. Now this subject can become very complicated and very hard to use, or very simple to use if you get the basic concepts. But also it will depend really on your ambitions, how far you want to push it with the 3D space. I have a full course about a 3D space if you would like. If you want to follow along with me, please open Intro to 3D-Start.aep. And here we are in the folder Intro to 3D. You can scroll it down and double click on Intro to 3D Comp to open it. Before we start talking about 3D layers, I want to remind you or bring to your attention several things that will be very relevant when we talk about 3D. First of all, you have the order of the layers. When you are in 2D, the layer is behind or in front just by the order in the timeline. For example, now you know that the shape layer 1 is behind the 3D in After Effects. You can take shape layer 1 and put it on top. So layers are in front or at the back of each other depending on the way they are ordered in the timeline. Then if you scroll down here, all the transformation in 2D have 2 coordinates, the horizontal, vertical, or X and Y. If it is the anchor point, position, and the scale, and of course the rotation is a single property that you have full rotations and angle rotation. Opacity doesn't change, of course. To get a layer to be in 3D, all you have to do is to switch it to 3D. That is the cube over here, you come and you click on the switch, it is now switched to 3D. You can switch it back to 2D and lose every work you have done in 3D. And I will do the same for the second one. Now I have 2 layers, each in 3D. Let's notice exactly what happened. First of all, I have something called active camera that appeared here. When you switch at least a layer in a composition to 3D, the active camera is on. This is a fictive camera that After Effects has created for you to be able to work in 3D. Without a camera in After Effects, there is no 3D. This camera, you could imagine it's at like 1 foot away from your screen, something like this. So it's away from the layers. It's not stuck over here. And you have here the renderer. It's set to Classic 3D. Please guys, if here you read something else than Classic 3D, click on it, come to the composition setting, and make sure the renderer is Classic 3D and not Cinema 4D or Ray Trace CD. You will see these later on. Now, in the timeline, look what happened to the layer. It became in 3D, and there are some changes to the transform. First of all, the position has now 3 coordinates, the X, Y, and Z, or horizontal, vertical, and depth further away or nearer to the camera. This is the Z value, the last one. And the scale also has 3 coordinates. Now the rotation has disappeared, and instead you have 3 of them. The orientation, which is a kind of rotation on 3 axes, the horizontal, vertical, and depth, and you have the X rotation, Y rotation, and Z rotation. Cool. I want you to focus on the position only for this lecture. I will select both layers and press P. Now you notice this workspace here, I can see everything flat. It's like I'm not in 3D. Though the layers might be at the same plan here, I need to see them in 3D, and of course to explain to you how 3D works. There is a very simple workspace I want you to get. Let's go to the double arrow here. Most probably it's under your double arrows, and you go, I want the minimal workspace. Before you click on it, this is what I would like you to do. Go to Edit Workspace, find Minimal, wherever you can find it here, click on it and drag it, and take it and put it just after the default. Then click on Minimal to set the workspace. then of course you want to go and reset the workspace. So you and I, we should have the same if you haven't saved the minimal to another workspace. I want also to bring the project panel. So I will come to Window and bring back the project panel, which is just over here. You can press Ctrl 0 to see it, but I don't want it here. I'm going to click on it, drag, and just put it over here. So now I can see the composition or stories like this. It's not very feasible, but it will help us a bit. On the bar here, you have active camera. This active camera is the one we talked about. And also you have the one view, two view horizontal, two view vertical, and so on. What I would like you to choose first is two views horizontal. Now you have two views for the same composition. This is the same comp. One is the real one, is the one that's going to become a video. It's the active camera. And over here you could have any kind of view. It could have been, for example, the front view if you'd like, or the top view, any of them. And you know this one is selected by these blue triangles just over here. Okay? I click here, I select this one, I can see the blue triangles. Fine. Come back to the one that you have here and change it from whatever it is to custom view 1. So now you notice that you have a kind of a 3D here. Let's go to 50%, it will be better. You can come over to this one and you can use the scroll mouse up and down to zoom in and out. Whatever you do here, sometimes it won't affect here. I will go in details in that. Now you have set up a very good workspace to work in 3D. We are still in the intro 3D composition, and in this lecture you are going to explore how the 3D axis or the anchor point in 3D operates, how to use it, and also we are going to work with the position only for now. If I select the layer over here, you notice how the axes have changed. Okay, now you have 3 axes, and before you just had an anchor point in 2D. Please make sure that you are in local axis mode, not any other one. Now, in the axis mode, you have the x-axis. If you click and drag it left or right, it's moving on the x. You notice also in position, the first value is changing. Okay, guys? I will undo this. Now, if you take the other axis, okay, and take it up and down, here you are. You notice also in the value for position is the second value that's changing. And now it's normal movement of the axis. I will undo this. And then you have the new axis, which is the z-axis. The camera is always in front of the z-axis. Notice, if I take it in front, okay, notice how the layer in the active camera view is getting bigger. It means the layer is getting near the camera, obviously. If you take it to the back, notice it's getting smaller until it becomes behind the shape layer. Now you can see it. Okay, and this is the z-axis. Of course, in the values down there, you notice that it's the third value that's changing in position. I will undo this. This is the axis system, and this is how it works. Very easy. Now let's explore a bit the views. If you go, for example, to the front view, it is the front view. So the camera is like in the position of your eyes. This is the front view, which is the same as the active camera view. If you change from front view, for example, to top view, now you're seeing the layers from top. The camera is just over here. And there are 2 axes that you can move very easily, the x-axis and the z-axis. The camera being over here, if you move the z-axis, notice what's happening. Now you see it very clearly in the top view that the shape layer is behind the text layer. See how? Look how far you can go also. Fine. Now if you take it back, you notice also from the active camera view that the text layer is behind the shape layer. Cool, guys? So the top view is very useful to see which layer is behind which. I will undo this. Let's go now, for example, to the left view. In the left view here, of course, the z-axis will point to the camera. The camera is over here. Notice I prove it to you, the text layer will get bigger. Okay? And the 2 main axes that you can easily work with in the left view is the z and the y. The x is hidden and is pointing towards you. So the y is very obvious here. Okay? Here you are. So the left and right view, if you go to the right view, I will undo that first and go to the right view. So now you're looking from the right. Of course, the right of the composition, not your right. It will be your left now. So here you are. Notice how it's working. This is in front or behind. Cool. I will undo just to get it in the same position. If you go, for example, to the bottom, that is the inverse of the top. You have the x-axis, the camera is over here, and you can go up towards the camera and back away from the camera. This is a proof to you now that the order of the layers here, when you're playing with the Z space or the Z axis, doesn't matter anymore. The order can be anything, and you can put any layer in front of any other one. Let's go back now to the custom view one. I urge you to come and play here. I urge you to come and get used to the system. Otherwise, animating in 3D is going to become very complex for you. Not because it's complex, but because it becomes hard to see how the layers are moving. So please come and play and have fun. Now it's time to start animating the position and create a motion path. And see how the motion path will appear in the active camera view, in the custom view 1 and 2, and maybe the front and back view, left view, right view, all the views they want. You notice that the motion path will play tricks on you when you change your views. So let's start here. Let's go to 3 seconds. We're going to make a very slow animation. Later on, we'll make it speedier. Now, I will select both layers and I will keyframe them. Let's start by animating the text layer here. The first thing that you would like to do for this experience is to animate the Z-axis. Well, I can click here and work on it, or I can come to this Z-axis, which is better, or the value. But then I will gonna use this one. I will click and put it in front of the camera. Okay, so this is the beginning. And you notice the value is negative here. Good. Then I'm gonna zoom in here using the mouse and simply click on the layer and move it around. So now I don't have to use the Y and X axis because you know how to use them. Then you notice you have a Bezier motion path. If it is a linear motion path that you have, then you know how to change it in the preferences. So I'll come over here and make kind of, a slam. This is how I want it to happen. Cool. Now look at the motion path over here. It really doesn't look like the motion path over here. But actually here it's more representative how the text is gonna come over. Let's scrub through and see exactly how it's coming. Well, it's pretty cool over here. Now let's have an active camera view here. Look at it. Is it pretty cool? Now I wish I could have this one. But nevertheless, you understand the difference in the motion path with the views. Let's go to the beginning and now take shape layer 1. Shape layer 1, I'm going to start from away from the camera. Here you are. I like this one. Now, if I start designing here, the motion path is going to be a bit terrible because it doesn't look like the active camera. So I better start over here, maybe. One day you will be very good at this and you can really work in the custom view or any view you want. So I'll click over and just put it over here. Notice how the motion path is really different. Then let's play with the handles here to make it, like kind of a slam or something like this, the way you would like. Okay, there is no rule here, just demonstration. So I'll click and scrub through. Notice, guys, when you play, it doesn't move in the custom view, but if you scrub, it does move. So this is the motion path, and notice the difference in views. Okay, if you look at our animation now in real time here, it's not bad. Okay, this is cool, but not that cool. Let's adjust it. Let's take this path and let's move it just over here, for example, and bring it down a bit. Okay, just over here, and notice what's gonna happen. Okay, not bad. It's still there. It's still okay. So it's gonna take some work here. Let's look at the motion path from different views. I'll click here to select this panel and then change from custom view to front view. Okay, let's select both layers here, and actually we have exactly the same. Cool. Let's go back to the left view. So you're looking from the left of the comp towards the comp. Okay, there is not much here if I zoom in, but the motion path really doesn't look the same. Let's go now to the top view. This makes more sense. You can see exactly how it has been done. So let's adjust over here. I think it's the Z that's making the problem, is delaying a lot to come in. Okay, and over here also the Z, let's bring it in, but it's coming inside the comp. So I will leave it just over here. Okay, maybe I play with the X and bring it in. It's not working, it's gonna show. So I will undo, just leave it here. That's fine. And then you can play with the other views if you like, the right view and the bottom view, to adjust your motion path And this is gonna take some practice from you guys. So let's run our animation and see. Here you are. Not very beautiful, but actually it shows you how the motion path is working. Of course, you can select the last keyframes, bring them to 1 second, for example. Let's give them some time over here, and then press F9 to easy ease them. And let's play the motion and see exactly. Not bad, it's okay. This is the way to work with the motion path and the position. I'm really focusing on showing you the motion path. You need to adjust it, you need to tweak it, you need to play with it until it's something that you really want to have. Thank you for listening, guys. Please go to After Effects and start playing with the position. Create all kind of wrong or right animations. It really doesn't matter, but it's important that you get a perception of how this motion path is working with different views. So later on, when you're creating a real animation that's useful, you know exactly what you're doing. In this lecture, we are going to conquer rotation in 3D in After Effects. Rotation in 3D is really something you want to master and gives you some awesome animations. Let's start. We are in the composition rotating and animating in 3D. Double click on it so we can start working together. Let's select both layers and press R. R is for rotation. Now notice our old rotation of one property has disappeared. Instead, we have 4 properties here we can work with. You have the orientation, which has the X, Y, and Z. And you have the X rotation standing alone with 4 rotations or angles, and the Y the same, and the Z rotation. Let's see exactly how we can play with them. If you go to your rotation tool over here, okay, you select it. To see exactly how rotation works, I will select the shape layer and just hide it a bit for now. Okay, we select the text layer. And look what happens when you start using the rotation, for example, on the x-axis just over here. You click on rotate, it's rotating on the x-axis. Cool. And of course, you have the y-axis. You get used to it. Okay. And you have our old friend, the z-axis, which is our normal rotation in 2D. If you click on the layer, not on the axis, you can freely rotate anywhere you want. Now, notice what's happening in the layer itself. When I freely rotate here, it is changing the values in orientation. Why is that? I will undo this to get orientation to be 0, 0. When you select your rotation tool, there is a setting here that you can change. You can either work with orientation or the rotation, depending on what you're doing. Now, usually you will use orientation to orient your layer, and then you will use the XYZ rotation to create the rotation animation in any plan you want. If you change to rotation and you freely rotate, notice how the XYZ rotation are working. So depending on the kind of animation you want to do, you can use either. It's no problem. I prefer to set the orientation and then work on the XYZ for the animation. Now let's put back the second layer on. And then we come to the left panel over here and change from custom view to top view. Okay, so I have the 2 layers here on top. I will select rotation in 3D, the text layer, and rotate it on the y-axis. I will rotate just a bit. I will hold control. It will rotate very slowly. Okay, here you are. So you notice how the layer has been cut here. And you notice that in the top view over here, the layers are intersecting. Notice this is the text layer, this is the shape layer, and notice how they are intersecting. It's like the text layer, half of it is behind the shape layer and half of it is in front of the shape layer. These are things you might want to notice when you're working with rotation and adjust them. Let's undo. Now, of course, you can come over, either play with the axes or you change the values here. This is pretty easy. I leave it to you to play with. Let's create an animation, a slow one in the beginning. We come to 4 seconds. I'm going to keyframe the Y rotation here. I'm going to also open the position for both layers. I press Shift P and also keyframe the position. And to create a nice animation here, I need to change the anchor point position. I press Y. For example, I'll put it just on the side here. Press Ctrl to snap it on the left side in the middle. Now let's create the animation. The view here is very useful for now. First of all, I will go back to the beginning here, and then I will animate the Y rotation to take it forward. Okay, so the text is gonna come forward. Just stop over here and then move just like this. Okay, now you have a very nice animation that's coming just like this. Now if you select position, you can see the motion path over here. If I adjust the motion path from here, it will be totally different. Okay, notice what's going to happen if I adjust it from here. So I'm in the front view. Notice how it's going to happen. It's going to go down and up. Not exactly what I want. Okay, but if I adjust it in the top view over here, it's going to be totally different. I'll take position and then I'm going to do like this. So I'm looking at it from top. You could imagine yourself looking at it from top. Notice how the layer is going to move. It's going to come over here and notice how it's moving on the front view. It's pretty nice and pretty cool. This is why I showed you all these views. So now let's play with the shape layer. I will come to the next keyframe because I want to change the position of the anchor point. Press Y to get the pan behind tool. Click on it and just put it over here. That will be cool. Then I will also keyframe the Y rotation here. So this is the final position. I will use the selection tool now and rotate it the way I would like. For example, just like this. This one will come from behind. Yes, true. Okay, just like this. Then move it with the position behind. Here you are. Okay, so notice the animation now is coming from behind and coming in. If you come to the top view here, you can now adjust the motion path itself. So I click on the keyframe, just move it over here, for example. You can do it the way you would like, you know. Let's move this one here. So you have a different motion. Notice what's happening. It's coming up very nicely. Cool, guys. So the views can help you a lot creating very nice animation. Of course, what you would like to do now is select all your layers. Press U again, get the keyframes. Press F9 to easy ease them. And you can play with the graph here. For example, something just like this. Okay, here you are. Notice you have a very beautiful animation, by the way. But this is just the start, guys. Imagine what you can do later. When you really have mastered the skill of rotating in 3D, there will be so many nice animations that even we will do together. Motion graphics in 3D. In the next 4 lectures, we will do 4 exercises for motion graphics in 3D. It's very important that you try your hand in motion graphics in 3D, so later on you can do a full project, motion graphics, with the camera and lights and other animations if you like. So these are the animations that we are going to create. I hope you like them. And then you will get many tips that will help you animating in 3D. So please, for every exercise, follow along with me, and then later on try to do it on your own. Delete everything and try to do it on your own. We start with some exercises, guys, and it's very important that you start with me and you practice. If you don't practice, you're gonna forget what we talked about in the previous lectures. So also it's very amusing, it's very nice. You know, you're doing motion graphics and you want to add visual effects later on. So it's cool that you know everything and you know how to animate. In this lecture, we are going to do this animation. It's gonna be very easy for you. So let's start. First of all, go to your minimal workspace, remember that, and you reset it in case. And open the 2 views, the active camera, and here I put top. If it's not usable for this animation, then we can change and put whatever you want. And remember, maybe your project panel, you want to put it over here. And the most important is Classic 3D. Please, guys, don't put anything like Cinema 4D or Ray Trace CD. It will mess up things for you for now. So let's start our animation. Since I want to rotate these layers all at the same time, I will use now a null layer. It's gonna be a double learning for you. You will learn how to use the null layer and how to use the 3D animation. Set all your layers to 3D now. Let's right click, new, and we add the null object. The null object has to be in 3D. Fine, I'll just move it on this axis here and just put it aside so we can see its movement is not on top of everything. Now we select all our layers except the null layer and pick whip them to the null layer. Cool. Let's select now the rotation for the null layer. Come to 2 seconds. Of course, I'm going to do a slow animation, then you can speed it up the way you would like. And keyframe the X rotation. Come back to the beginning here. and turn it, see exactly how we want to turn it. Here you are. Okay, I think -90 will do well. Now you have a slight problem here. If you deselect, you can see these lines. I will show you a way to fix them. In fact, two ways to fix them. If you run your animation, it's almost done. Here you are. So now that's not showing very much in 3D. Let's do something else. Let's come over here and select our layers. Okay, you see all the anchor points. Now this view is useless for me in this case. What I will do is to change the view from top to custom view 2. Well, now I can see the layers a bit better. Let's select school online and just move it up. As you can see, it's moving up. Okay, let's put it over here. Let's select motion graphics and just put it even above. Okay, that's cool. Let's select the background now. That's the gray background, and put it just over here. And run our animation and see how it is. Now it's much nicer. It looks like in 3D. Maybe I exaggerated on the motion graphics. Of course, you want to come and tweak it the way you would like. I will take it down a bit. I will play, and here you are. At the beginning of the animation, these layers are visible. We don't want that. The red layer, the null, you cannot do anything about it. It's going to stay visible until you render. But here there is a lot you can do. The first way to make them disappear is through opacity, of course. I press T after selecting all of them, keyframe the opacity at 0%. Then after some time over here, of course now they are invisible, I will put back the opacity to 100%. Deselect and try it. Okay, it's not working very fine. Here you are. Right, the blue layer here is the border. You can see it. So the way to know it's hit, then you remove it and play your animation. Yes, it's this guy. Now that's what's happening here. Also, motion graphic is giving you some problem. There is a flickering line. Cool. Let's pull it up and simply trim your layer in the beginning, and motion graphics we trim it in the beginning here. And now let's play our animation. Still motion graphic is giving us a problem. Okay, just over here, let's take it one frame will be okay. And here you are, you have done a very nice animation. Okay, let's look at it. Not bad. Do we have any other problem? I don't see any. It's cool. Now, of course, if you come an easy ease, the speed is going to change and you might have another problem with visibility of these layers. But actually, the animation is very easy and very simple. Of course, you can start adjusting it much more. For example, you can select the 4 layers, open the rotation here, and decide, okay, I want them to rotate, coming at 1 second on the X rotation, just 0. Okay, the way it is. Then in the beginning here, put them, for example, a -50. Okay, something like this. You can play around with it. So if you play now, and you have a totally new animation, which is pretty cool, guys. Now I leave it to you to come over to After Effects, open the start, and start here creating your animation. Let's start with our second animation exercise. Remember, if you want to follow along, open the file intro to 3d-final.aep. And over here, you will open the second animation. So it's number 2, animating in 3D. Okay. Now here we want to create a nice animation, and I will show you the effect of the anchor point in 3D. It's pretty interesting, by the way. What do we have? We have 2 text layers here. I'm using the font Arial Rounded, so you must have it on your system. And the anchor point of each text layer is just in the middle. The bar over here is just a shape layer. This is a pen tool shape layer, so you can fix it the way you would like. You can make a square, but this one looks nice. If you use the X rotation, the rotation won't be that amazing, okay, with the anchor point being in the middle of the layer. Well, what happens if you move the anchor point? I will use the pan behind tool, or the shortcut is Y, and move the anchor point, for example, on the Y axis just up here. Now, if you use the X rotation, you have a different kind of animation. But now it's more than rotating now. I will undo. Let's do the same for the motion here. Use the Y axis, take it down so easily. Here you are. Coming at 2 seconds, just over here, let's keyframe the X rotation. We come to the beginning, and we rotate in a certain way where we can hide the layer behind the bar. Okay, that's one trick. And for motion also, we hide it behind the bar. I don't care if it's 90 degrees or whatever. I want to see it that it's hidden. If you play your animation, it's now very cool. Of course, you can come over, give it an easy ease, make it shorter. I don't know, let's take it to a few frames only. You have a nice animation that's pretty cool. I want to show you something else. You see, the story of the anchor point in 3D is very important and you should get used to it. What happens if you animate the anchor point in 3D? I'll select both layers and press A for the anchor point. I will keyframe the anchor point here. So while you're here, let's change the position of the anchor point. I will use the Z plan. Just make it as big as I want. So actually, I'm moving the anchor point. I'm not moving the text layer. Notice you're animating the anchor point. This is cool, but we need to resize it. Best way to resize it, if you open the position, that's Shift P, and then you can also play with the Z position. Here you are. You notice what's happening here. Okay, cool. Let's go back to the beginning here. Put the anchor point back to 0. Let's see your animation. Let's do the same for the second layer. If you come to motion now and use the anchor point, you make it as big as you like. For example, just like this. And then, of course, you want to open the position. I press Shift P to get the position and keyframe the position over here if you like. And use the Z to return it to its plan over here. Now, if I go back to the beginning here, I can keyframe the anchor point at 0. Okay? If you play your animation, here you are. Maybe I exaggerated a bit with the anchor point here, take it too high. Maybe I'll make it smaller over here. You know, let's say around 350. Okay? And motion, we make it 350. Right, so let's adjust the positions again. Okay, here you are. This is good exercise, right, guys? And then you can make with this one bigger. Let's come back, and we don't need the animation for position here. We just play it. Here you are. You have in full circle. Now, animating the anchor point in 3D is very interesting, as you noted. And actually, you don't see the anchor point moving. It is the text or the layer that is moving. The anchor point is still somehow in the same place. Let's start, guys, with our third practice for 3D motion. Please open the Animating in 3D number 3. I will double click on it. It will open for you. Now, this is a very simple animation, and we'll see what we can do to make it even better. The shape layer here is a stroke, and it has a trim path here that will animate it to grow. Okay, so let's start our animation. I will select the 3 shape layers now, and of course put them in 3D. Okay, then open the rotation. That will be R. Now, same, if you notice the Y rotation will rotate on the anchor point. Not interesting when the anchor point is not really well set. Good. I will change the position of the anchor point. I will come over here and then use the pan behind or press Y. Select the first layer. I'm going to zoom in. Here you are. Now, when you're changing the anchor point position, you don't have to look at the blue. Please look at the anchor point itself. Okay, so you might think, okay, I put it in the right position. Actually, no. It's the small anchor point here that you're looking at. And you want to put it right in the middle, just over here. Fine. Let's go down, select this guy, and adjust the anchor point to just put it over here. Okay. And then go down, and again, adjust this guy just to put it over here. Let's zoom out now to 100%. And we start our animation. I'm going to work at the beginning of the layers, then move them around. I will go to 2 seconds. Or 3, whatever you like. I'll make it 2 here. I select all the layers except the shape layer, so I will lock it over here. And then keyframe the Y rotation. This is where I want them. Come back to the beginning and just move the Y rotation just like this. Okay. If you skip through, it's not right yet because the shape layer should come first. So I will select the 3 layers, Ctrl A, use my selection tool here, and twirl them up. And just move them to this point over here. Okay, now you have a very nice animation. Cool. Of course, you want to sequence your layers. If you say motion will come first, as is best will come second, and the other one will come third, here you are, you have a very nice animation, somehow a bit slow. So let's open the keyframes. I press U, and of course I bring them nearer. Okay, select all of them, all the keyframes here, press F9 to easy ease them, go to the beginning here and do something just like this. Maybe also you can get back and select the last keyframes, here you are, and then make them longer so you have a nicer easy ease. We have done this animation, it's pretty cool. Now guys, I would like you to come over to this animation, create the same, but then add something more. Try to play with the anchor point. Say if you animate the anchor point with the x-axis now, let's say just over here, and then return this layer using the x position, what will happen and what kind of animation you will have. Come play around, make sure that you understand exactly how it's happening, and don't worry about mistakes. You know, you'll overcome them later, but it's very important that you practice. I will see you in the next lecture.